Which famous world explorers do you know? Most likely, the name Christopher Columbus is the first that comes to mind. Christopher Columbus was famous as an explorer and navigation expert in his time. He surprised the world by traveling across the vast Atlantic Ocean. The name Christopher Columbus, also known as the discoverer of the Americas. Throughout his life, Christopher Columbus made 4 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean from Spain, namely in 1492, 1493, 1498 and 1502. In fact, he attempted to find a direct water route west from Europe to Asia, but he never did. Instead, he discovered the American continent. His voyage began on August 3, 1492, with a crew of 90 people and using 3 ships. He departed from Palos de la Frontera, Spain. This journey was also to prove that the Earth is round. Columbus managed to reach what is now the Bahamas in 61 days. He initially thought his plan had succeeded in reaching India. In fact, he called the native people there Indians, a name that is actually not appropriate but has stuck. Christopher Columbus was the son of a wool merchant who was born in Genoa, Italy, in 1451. While still a teenager, he worked on a merchant ship. He was at sea until 1476, when pirates attacked his ship while sailing north along the Portuguese coast. The boat sank, but young Columbus managed to float to shore using pieces of wood and made his way to Lisbon, where he eventually studied mathematics, astronomy, cartography and navigation. He also begins to set out his plans that will change the world forever. By the end of the 15th century, it was almost impossible to reach Asia from Europe by land. The route is long and difficult, not to mention encountering enemy troops. Portuguese explorers solved this problem by going to sea, where they sailed south along the coast of West Africa and around the Cape of Good Hope. But Columbus had different thoughts. Why not sail west across the Atlantic instead of circumnavigating the vast continent of Africa? The young navigator's logic was sound, but his math was wrong. He argued that the circumference of the Earth was much smaller than his contemporaries believed. Therefore, he believed that travel by boat from Europe to Asia should not only be possible, but also relatively easy via the Western Sea route. He presented his plans to officials in Portugal and England, but it was not until 1492 that his plans caught the attention of an audience, namely the Spanish kings Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. Columbus's contract with the Spanish rulers promised that he could keep 10% of any wealth he discovered, along with the title of nobility and governorship of any lands he should discover. On August 3, 1492, Columbus and his crew sailed from Spain aboard 3 ships, the Niña, Pinta and Santa Maria. On October 12, the ships landed, but not in the East Indies, as Columbus had assumed, but on one of the Bahamian islands, most likely San Salvador. For months, Columbus sailed from island to island in what we now know as the Caribbean, searching for pearls, precious stones, gold, silver, spices and whatever other objects and trade goods he had promised his Spanish customers, but he didn't find much. In January 1493, leaving several dozen men in makeshift settlements in Hispaniola, now Haiti and the Dominican Republic, he departed for Spain. He kept a detailed diary during his first trip. Christopher Columbus's journal was written between August 3, 1492, and November 6, 1492 and mentions everything from the wildlife he encountered, such as dolphins and birds, to the weather to the moods of his crew. Even sadder, the book also records his initial impressions of the local people and his arguments for why they should be enslaved. They brought us parrots and cotton balls, spears and many other things which they exchanged for glass beads and eagle bells, he wrote. They willingly exchanged everything they had. They were well built, with good bodies and handsome features. They did not carry and did not know weapons, because I showed them a sword. They took the edge and injured themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. They will make good servants. With 50 men we can conquer them all and make them do whatever we want. Columbus presented the journal to Isabella upon his return. Christopher Columbus was not the person who discovered the Americas. He was also not the first European to visit the New World, as Viking explorer Leif Erikson had sailed to Greenland and Newfoundland in the 11th century. However, his journey began centuries of exploration and exploitation of the American continent. The Columbian exchange transferred people, animals, food and disease across cultures. It was thanks to him that wheat became a staple of America's diet. African coffee and Asian sugarcane became cash crops for Latin America, while American foods such as corn, tomatoes and potatoes were introduced into the European diet. Today, Columbus has a controversial legacy. He is remembered as a brave explorer and trailblazer who transformed the New World. But his actions also unleashed change, ultimately destroying the native populations he and his fellow explorers encountered.